We'll continue to work today. We'll continue to work through the night. There's no agreement. Look, it's not easy. This is a big issue, and it's not something you can solve easily. We want to make sure it's worthy of the American people, and we'll continue working until we get it done.
That was House Speaker Kevin McCarthy last night at the Capitol, stressing a deal not yet done on the debt ceiling, but both sides say progress has been made. The negotiators meeting again today. Joining us now, live from the White House, is Deputy Secretary of the Treasury, Wally Adeyemo. Wally, great, Mr. Deputy Secretary, great to see you this morning. So let's talk about just where we are. We're less than a week to the deadline. What can you tell us about where things stand?
So I can say what you've largely already said, which is that progress has been made, but we need to take action immediately to make sure that we avoid defaulting on our nation's debt, but also on the money we owe to seniors and to veterans and others. As you mentioned, the Secretary said that it is highly likely by early June we will no longer have the resources to meet our commitments to our creditors, but also to our seniors, to our veterans, and other Americans. And Congress needs to act to make sure that that's avoided.
So we hear a lot about sort of these big picture 30,000-foot ideas that it would be catastrophic, that it would be a financial calamity were the nation to default. But break it down for us into like real world examples for everyday Americans. If this were to happen next week, less than a week away, how would it change their lives each and every day?
So let's just go back to 2011. In 2011, although at the last minute they avoided default, the stock market fell by about 20%. If you have a 401k, that's going to impact your 401k. A few weeks ago, the United States government auctioned off bills, and we paid $80 million more to sell that debt than we would have. That's $80 million we're not spending on your children's education, on infrastructure. As you know, when you want to borrow to buy a house or to pay for your small business, the rate that you borrow at is set off of the rate that the government borrows at plus something. If the government's rate of borrowing goes up because we defaulted on our debt, that means it's going to be harder for you to buy a home, for you to get a car, to get a loan for your small business. So this is already having real world impacts, and they will only get worse the closer we get to the deadline, which the Secretary said is highly likely to be in early June.
So, Wally, so many people, this is Jen, by the way, so many people have, so many people have June 1st circled on their calendar as if we're kind of like all fall off a cliff into the ocean after that day. What happens on June 1st? What should people be bracing for? And why is that the date on the calendar that people are so focused on?
So, Jen, you've been in government through a few of these when we've gone through periods where the Congress has had to lift the debt limit. And one of the things that is important for everybody to know is that the government makes billions of dollars of payments each day and takes in money. It's incredibly hard to predict exactly when the date is going to be. What the Secretary has said that it's highly likely that it's going to be in early June, that we no longer have the resources to meet our payments. And what does it mean for us to not be able to meet our payments? It's not just payments, as I said earlier, to creditors who lend us money, but it's payments to our troops who are get a salary from the U.S. government, to our veterans who are getting veterans benefits, to Social Security recipients. And if we don't have authorization from Congress, we'll be forced to default on all of our bills to those individuals once we run out of resources.
John and Lemire, I know you've been talking a lot to the White House, too, and Wally's obviously standing right outside the White House, but they've been really quiet. I have my own thoughts on this, but I wanted to ask you, why do you think they've been so quiet? What bet are they making here?
Yeah, they are. It's a deliberate strategy here that they have sort of ceded the floor, the communications game, to the House Speaker. I mean, we just saw it. Kevin McCarthy, he doesn't miss an opportunity to get in front of a camera. And some Democrats think that that's a mistake by the White House, that the president has said, look, he feels like if he interjects himself, it gets too political. He'd rather stand back, just sort of act as the closer at the very end of the deal. And that may prove work. That's the strategy that the White House has used for other thorny negotiations over the last 2.5 years. But there are some Democrats who are anxious that they have let McCarthy sort of dictate the terms of this debate, at least so far. So, Reverend Sharpton, I mean, the clock is ticking. There does seem like there's progress made on spending, some reports that on defense, that's something that the White House has maybe scored a victory on. But it's work requirements and permitting are the two thorny issues still to go.
It is. The clock is ticking, and the decision to have a real compromise here is going to mean a lot, as the Deputy Secretary has said. But I think also on the other side, I've been on the phone a lot with people in the White House, and our National Action Network Washington Bureau Chief Ebony Riley's been there, is we're saying there can be a bridge too far. And I think that the president and others are also trying not to, at the end of the day, do something that would be permanently damaging. And I'd be interested in the Deputy Secretary comment on that, Adeyemo on that, because you don't want to see the people, the veterans, the seniors, people that are depending on the government for either their salaries or their benefits. You don't want to see them hurt with our failing to deal with the debt relief. But at the same time, you don't want to put them on the chopping block in an unfair way, in an unjustifiable way, to stop a hostage takeover by the right wing. So I think that balance there, a lot of people are not appreciating.
Yeah, I think Reverend Sharpton, you're completely right that we want to make sure that the economy the president has worked so hard to build with Congress and the American people continues to be strong. As you know, we've created more than 12 million jobs during the presidency. We have an economy that's growing, inflation that's coming down. It's critical that any deal that's reached continues that momentum, and the president's committed to giving the negotiators room to do just that, negotiate. But he's been really clear about what he believes in. He laid out a comprehensive budget that brings down our debts and deficits by $3 trillion while making investments in America, and that's exactly what he's calling for in these negotiations.
Deputy Secretary of the Treasury, Wally Adeyemo, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.